Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. This is the Committee of the Whole, Public Works, Environmental Services and Facilities meeting of September 16th, 2019. Now, there's just a brief note I have here under the call to order, a advisory member resignation. Unfortunately, we have lost Mr. Crawford. He has business obligations that he can't get out of right now, so he has tendered his resignation as an advisory chair beside Mr. Packwood. And in the very near future, we will be putting a call out for another advisory member. I'd just like to mention that if anyone has any ideas of people that may fill that spot, we'd be more than happy to entertain listening to them, because good people are hard to come by. Okay, could I have approval of the agenda, please?
We'll move.
A mover with Mr. Hunter, Councillor Hunter, and seconded by Deputy Mayor Deschamps. Thank you. Disclosure of. All those in favor? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof.
None.
Hearing none. Now we'll move on to number 4, business arising from the previous Committee of the Whole meeting, if any. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, queries?
None here.
Hearing none. Thank you. We have no delegations or presentations tonight, so we will move on to item number 6, which is a discussion item. Now, this is something that I brought forward as a query a couple of weeks ago. It's regarding the new EDR routes that we see around, and you've had a chance to read the briefing note, but I'll just cover some of it. In September of this year, the rail bridge over County Road 2 is having work done to create a safe connection with the Port of Johnstown and the CN-CPR spur line, and this will be going on for approximately 8 to 10 weeks. Now, in fact, if we have a accident on 401, the EDR route is normally down County Road 22 and across number 2, and then up Edward Street in Prescott, causing undue delays. So I put down 7 items that we should discuss, or at least have staff look into them, and or if they can't address them tonight. And they are as follows. Number 1, how can our township prevent abnormal traffic on certain township roads? Now, I'm not talking about county roads, only township roads such as Cedar Grove Road or Rooney Road, or small roads like that are not made to withstand the heavy traffic. Can our staff set up signage to limit these roads to local traffic? Is that a possibility? 3, do we have staff to do this function with signage only? Will we need manned barriers in certain locations? That means having a man with the barrier to make sure we don't have any jumpers. 5, consideration should also be given to the traffic backed up for many miles on Highway 401 that will exit early to make faster progress, such as getting off at, say, Morrisburg or Iroquois, or in the other direction, Maitland, and so on. So as the traffic backs up, they may jump off there, and what is that going to do to the various county roads? And also, should consideration with neighboring townships be our concern? I feel we should at least discuss it with them. And will there be police presence to be counted on? Now, I'm just going to ask staff if you have anything further to add to what we say there, and or the mapping that you have at the back of the briefing note. There's 3 EDR routes shown there. do we have any concerns about the roads in our township between the EDR routes? So if staff has anything, I would appreciate hearing it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd ask the Director of Operations if he has anything on this subject. I know he's been working on an idea to either rent or buy some of the electronic lighted signs that we've been using this summer for road closures, but I don't know where he's at with that project.
Okay, Mr. Director, if we,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the main concern or the main EDR of our concerns would be number 2, which would be the Johnstown to Cardinal end of it, or Prescott to Cardinal end of it. One of the options available that we started this year with our capital works projects was to rent electronic signboards that advised of construction activities ahead. We utilized that on Pittston and Weir Road, and I think it was well received. There is that possibility of setting up those electronic signs. They're about $1,100 a piece per month. That could be programmed to indicate local traffic only, not an EDR. They could be positioned on some of those crossroads such as Cedar Grove Road, Glensdale, Weir, where there is that potential for traffic to try to cut across and not go the full route up to 21. And one of the items that we have discussed in the Public Works Department is potentially purchasing a couple of these electronic signs, putting forward in the 2020 budget for these capital projects where we can have them all year round. So that is certainly one option available. I believe our road superintendent has touched base and been working with MTO. I believe there is a sign going up on Cedar Grove Road with respect to this situation. I believe that it is just the Cedar Grove Road area, or have they extended that out to?
No, they've got it at 22 and Jordan.
And they also have it at 22 in Jordan Road.
Okay, so explain what it is through the chair. What is it, what's the plan here?
The MTO has erected a sign indicating not an EDR route at 22 in Jordan. So that would be just right off the 401.
Vehicle cannot get onto Jordan.
they're
The
asking.
the signage is indicating that it is not an EDR route, not to use it as an EDR, and the same is there at Cedar Grove Road. And 16.
Which end of Cedar Grove?
It's 16,
Just the one end?
just the one end.
Both ends need them. Yeah.
Correct, and that would be something, I believe, one of the items was speaking with the neighboring municipalities.
That is
And I think in that particular end, even with the electronic signboards, that the hope would be that three out of those 6 boards would be placed in Augusta, and sort of a cost sharing in that end of it.
So,
Yes.
my worry here, County Road 2 is blocked to one lane now. If 401 is closed tonight, how long is it gonna take to execute on any of this?
We would probably, from time to notification, what we would have at our disposal right now is just barricades and traffic cones. It would be at least, probably an hour to get mobilized, and we wouldn't be able to mobilize in all of those locations.
So, through the chair, if we're just trying to keep the vehicles for the present time, if we're just talking about how to keep the heavy vehicles off let's just confine the discussion to Rooney Jordan and Cedar Grove Road.
Okay,
So if we're just talking keeping the heavy traffic off those two roads, we know we need to provide blockages at both ends of each. That's 4 blockages. Now, it would take us, you're saying that we have the resources to get blockages into those locations within an hour. Is that what I'm hearing?
I would say, yes, we could. The exception is naturally the west end of Cedar Grove Road, which is not our township.
Same issue though. I mean, and the reason I'm asking the question is because this whole issue of protecting our township roads and what the alternate plan was gonna be for the alternate EDRs, this has been probably 6 weeks in discussion. Have we not had any discussion with Augusta up to this point in time?
At this stage, we have not had any kind of formal discussion with Augusta, no.
So would you act on your own and close the west end of Cedar Grove Road eastbound or not?
I would not act on that because we don't have the authority or the jurisdiction on that portion of that road.
Well, we do snow plowing on that road. We're responsible for it in the winter time. They're responsible for it in the summertime. I mean, can we not get that issue out of the way here? I mean, nobody seems to understand the seriousness of this situation yet. If you get a closure on Highway 401, it's gonna become real apparent real quick. And what I'm hearing is that we really don't have a complete plan at this point in time.
Through the chair, there is no complete plan with our resources that we would be able to barricade off enough of our township roads to prevent, to ensure that all of those heavy vehicles are traveling down that alternate EDR number 2.
Okay, but I'm just confining the discussion right now to Rooney Jordan and Cedar Grove. I know that Browsville is an issue, Browsville Road is an issue. Let's forget about that for now. Let's just talk about Rooney Jordan and Cedar Grove Road. My question is, how long would it take us to get a firm plan in place that we can execute within an hour?
Madam CAO?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to point out that, you know, staff is working on a recommendation to this effect, but the chair of the committee asked for this to be a council discussion at this point. So council would like to give us a direction on what their preferred outcome is. That would be really helpful.
Well, Mr. Chair, if the staff is looking for direction from the committee, then can you put that question to the committee? Are we prepared to direct staff to set in place a plan to protect Rooney Jordan and Cedar Grove from east-west traffic in the event of a closure of Highway 401, a complete closure of Highway 401?
I will ask that question in just a few moments. Right now, for the duration, right now, I would like to go around the council table and get the other feelings of council at this moment. And I believe Mr. Guest is wanting to say something as well. So we'll hear Mr. Guest, and then I'll ask the rest of council, and then we'll go forward from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things that we've been working on is working with MPO, COCO maintenance, and the county and the contractor for this job. I have had several calls, and in particular based on the Rooney, Jordan, and Cedar Grove corridor, and we have had extra signs put up there for us. We have put our own barricades down there now, so they're staying there in the ditch line. So we are able to react within the hour should we have a long-term shutdown. And I'm still trying to work with MTO and COCO maintenance and the contractor county combination to ensure that we have the right components available to us. We also feel strongly that they should put signboards there for us as well. They haven't come back and said yes, so Dave and I have been looking at, do we have them available to us? And we can get them fairly quickly if it's a long-term shutdown. So we are working forward with that plan in mind to protect our roads. The county was to talk to, last time I talked to them, was to talk to Augusta Township. I have not heard back because we've had other things going on with windmills, 21 paving and our paving. So I will phone him tomorrow and find out if he did speak to Augusta about shutting their end down. And we will certainly come back to you with the information that is needed to make a good decision here.
Thank you, Mr. Guest. I'm going to start at this end of the table with Mr. Packwood. Mr. Packwood, you've had a chance to read the briefing note. Do you have any comments?
It sounds like Public Works is working on it, and I think they're doing probably the best they can for right now. That's all I can say.
Councillor Hunter.
Well, I think our works manager and operation manager is working on it. I'm glad to hear that he's been talking to our highway maintenance ones in Coca there, because I think we're responsible for our roads, but if they're responsible for the maintenance of 401, so if they shut it down, I think they should bear some responsibility of providing us with some signs and directional help along the way. I think that if we can do it in an hour, I would believe that during the day, but if it happened to happen at 11 o'clock at night, I don't know where we could get our crew out from home and in and out there in an hour's time or not, but I would expect that, I would hope that the maintenance crew that's shutting down, that ends up responsible for the police and the COCA to shut down the highway there, that they might provide us with a little assistance, at least until our staff could get there to do it, because they're gonna be the first ones that know that they're shutting the highway down. So I'm glad you're talking to them, and I hope you'd maybe put a little more pressure on them to, they're getting well paid for maintaining 401, so.
So I'll just bounce that question back to Mr. Guest. Does that sound like a reasonable expectation from what Mr. Councillor Hunter mentioned?
Mr. Chair, everything obviously there's some realistic, there's less traffic at night, so we do have a little bit longer to assemble, but I think we can assemble within reasonable time. Let's stop putting a definitive timeline on it, but we will, as we do in winter maintenance, we will react to the situation and have staff available as quickly as possible. And again, working with the other partners in this, we're the low boy on the totem pole here. And we have had some success, and I'm hoping to have more success by developing these relationships.
Good, thank you, Mr. Guest. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, sure. It seems like Public Works has done a good preparation for the closure. It sounds to me like they're ready for what may come. A couple of comments or a couple of questions in regard to what's there is if the Cedar Grove Road is an issue, and we all think that it is, why are we calling counties? Why don't we just call Augusta ourselves directly and have that conversation and just, it seems like, and maybe I'm wrong here, but it seems like it could be just a quick and easy phone call. Can we deploy signs quickly in the event of a closure, or could you deploy them if we already have some sort of an agreement with summer and winter maintenance? And then the other comment that I quickly have is driving southbound on the extended portion south of the 401. There are still 3 uncovered EDR directional signage pointing to the Highway 2 westbound, uncovered and still pointing westbound traffic to head towards Prescott using the Highway 2 as the EDR. Is that right? And if it's not right, when can we expect those maybe, or should they be uncovered or covered up, or maybe removed?
Mr. Chair, the latter is, I'll take that up with the group tomorrow. Again, it is a group, there is a pecking order, and I wanna work that. I don't wanna, if the county or the contractor already has something in place to talk and set things up with Augusta, then let that happen. I'll just go the right route through the guy that I've been dealing with at the county or MTO. So I don't wanna get into, somebody's already set up what they're gonna do, and you have to play myself right, but I wanna follow the procedures, I guess, there, and develop this relationship.
Thank you. Councilor Dillabaugh?
I just, number 7, that's not gonna happen, I do believe from experience. They just don't have the manpower. We're gonna have a real problem there with traffic on 16, number 2, and 22.
I'm sure.
Have we had any contact with our OPP supervisor about this? Dave? No, nothing?
We have had discussion about the police. I'm hoping nothing happens during this shutdown, but if something should happen, they've said the police will have their stations to go to in this whole big plan. So I agree with you, Councilor Dillabaugh, they are stretched. However, what I've been told by the group is that the police will respond to this because of the situation. I think we all know that shutting down the 401 and one-way traffic on Highway 2, it's just gonna be chaos, and it's gonna take more effort from everybody. So that's why I've been trying to develop this along with the other partners.
Mr. Mayor, anything further?
I sure do.
Okay.
And I'm not very happy. I mean, if the issue is do we protect, and there's a dozen issues floating around here, so let's sort them out a little bit. The first issue is, do we have a political will at this table to protect Jordan Rooney and Cedar Grove Road in the event of a Highway 401 closure? That's the first question. Because if we do, we're not giving proper direction. That's the first thing, because if we do have a will, a political will, to protect those 2 roads from that heavy truck traffic, then they'll be on their GPSs, guaranteed. Then those 2 roads have to have closure signs at both ends within the hour. And make no mistake, if Highway 401 is closed, it'll be closed for a minimum of, because the only reason they close it is in the case of a death. And the reason they close it in the case of a death is to do the investigation. Minimum closure is going to be 24 hours, minimum. If it's a serious accident, there's multiple deaths, it could be 48 or even more hours. Now, during all that period of time, all of that traffic is supposed to use 22 north to 21. 21 west to, what is it, 18? Can't remember.
Yes.
Comes out at Prescott.
Yes.
18.
Yeah.
And the eastbound traffic is supposed to do exactly the opposite. Now, the question that, and this is a different issue, but the question nobody has dealt with is what happens at the corner of Center Street and County Road 44, where you've got a line of westbound trucks trying to make a left-hand turn onto 21, and you've got a line of eastbound trucks trying to make a right-hand turn onto 44, and the intersection is only wide enough to support one movement at a time. one movement at a time. And what bothering me, I mean, you don't get any wordings about the closure of Highway 401. They do it like that if there's a death. Now, I've talked to the inspector has made it very clear, the very most that we can hope for is that she'll provide traffic control at County Road 22 and 2 in Cardinal, and she'll provide traffic control at County Road 2 and 16 in Johnstown. That's the very best, and she said, Pat, I cannot do any more than that. No matter how bad it is, that's the best I can do. And I've communicated all that for several meetings over a month. I don't understand why nobody grasps the problem. And why we don't at this point have a plan to put into action. An hour's notice is fine. I don't think we can ask our staff for any less than an hour, but I mean, we gotta be prepared here. We can't be just, oh my gosh, look at the traffic down at the corner there, Little Sister's Restaurant, isn't that pretty to watch? The last time that happened, a volunteer fireman went out and stood in that intersection and directed traffic. And I got all kinds of compliments that he knew enough to do that. Because if he hadn't, it would have been a total botch up.
Was it one of our boys?
Yes. So, I don't know, Mr. Chairman, I'm just not feeling real comfortable here. And you know, the thing about it is that if this happens, then the public looks on us. We're the governing body. The public looks on us and we take the heat. It's not their fault that there was no plan in place. It's our fault there was no plan in place.
I understand exactly what you're saying, and Mr. Guest has advised us that you do have barriers in the ditches now, waiting for a problem. And let's say what is the chain here when, let's say the 401 is shut down and closed at 2 in the morning? How long does it take? I would imagine our fire department knows about it fairly quickly, but do they notify you or the township? Just give me an idea how that works.
So through the chair, typically if there is a closure, it would be OPP notifying the road superintendent of that closure.
Okay. And is that done on a fairly timely manner?
I would anticipate that it is, but not knowing exactly when that closure took place
Right.
to when that notification was, I would anticipate that it would be in a timely manner.
Okay. So you have barriers assembled at the critical areas, Jordan, Cedar Grove, both ends. And that can be, from what I'm understanding, that can be somewhat assembled within an hour to an hour and a half.
Yes, sir.
And how many fingers have we got crossed that nothing does happen on 401?
All of them.
Yeah, so. Any less, or any better comfort now, Mr. Mayor?
Well, crossing fingers is not a plan.
Well, it's not a plan, but it may not happen.
And then the point number 4, I think, is well raised. I mean, you know, I mean, I understand what the road superintendent is telling us. He has barriers that he can move into place. That's the way I'm interpreting what you're saying.
Yes.
I'm thinking, for example, Cedar Grove Road at 16. You've got a barrier there that you can move into place. Now, will it say local traffic only on that barrier? Now, the next question, which you raised, Mr. Chairman, is will we need manned barriers at that location, or will the local traffic only sign be sufficient? What is your analysis of that? Do you think that barrier, you know it structurally, is it big enough to deter truck traffic, do you think?
Mr. Chair, as we did through the shutdowns of the last 2 winters that I've been here for, we have had to man them. What we're trying to put in place is so that I don't have to have 2 out there, I can have 1. I put enough barricades down there. Again, it's a matter of, I'm gonna look at it and make the call. And depending on where the accident is, I'll deploy the manpower to that area and make sure that we get, nobody running around barriers like we have had. And with the help of Coco and hopefully the county, and I don't mean to say hopefully but the county has some responsibility, or has responsibility too, as well here, because it's their county roads and we don't have jurisdiction on some of them. But we have been out on, and I did it myself, at County Road 2 and 22, the last time, I think it was where they changed the culvert, when it was right at that, or no, it was the accident after the culvert was changed. And that's no fun. But we have the manpower to go out there and do it, and we will, it's not that we don't have a plan, it's just not one that you can write in black and white, because we don't know where the accident's gonna occur. And like we said, we will react, and we're keeping our fingers crossed that nothing happens.
Mr. Hunter?
I just like to comment on the one item the mayor brought out. I intend to bring it up later, but on there 21, coming down through to 44 here, I think I brought it up before, that we need no parking signs up there permanent on that corner to keep traffic backed away from in front of our canoes property on the other side, and the hotel, not so much the hotel because they're the other direction, but certainly in front of his house there and down Parkway towards Little Sister's place there needs to be no parking signs up there. We do have it up the county road the other way, Parkway up, that they're supposed to stay off. But we need permission from the county, I guess, to put them up, or we just go ahead and put them up anyway and hope people abide by them. But we put no parking signs up for Spencerville Fair, and they park right beside the no parking signs, so
What's the chances, eh?
we need to, I think one thing we need to have in this plan, maybe, is to get the signs up there and have our bylaw enforcement officer, or committee empowered to have him, if there's an accident on call, to be there, and if somebody's parked there, to have them moved or ticketed, or tell them they're gonna get a ticket or get towed immediately. They gotta get their vehicle out of there. The trucks are gonna be turning there, and I don't know what we do for actual directional traffic there, because it's, we get one of Coco to help us out with or one of our other contractors help us out with a flagman there to direct traffic on that corner, because it's the only construction ones and police that can legally direct traffic without running into litigation if something happens. So where we talk to one of our local contractors, road contractors, Coker or Tackleberries or somebody there, if they would be willing to, even if we paid for it, provide us with a licensed flag person that could flag there to direct traffic. So, because obviously we're not gonna get police presence there. I think we should, for the $1 million+ we're paying them, when there's something like that, they should be, whether they have to call them in from Kempthorpe or wherever, I think they should be able to call us in a person. If they're only gonna provide one at the 2 exits in Prescott, I can't really see with the manpower these 2 departments have that they can really sit there with an honest face and tell us they can't provide us 3 police officers in a major accident on 401. But
Well, just responding to that, one of the issues that the inspector raised for me in the last go-round when 401 was closed, that she had used all of her local officers and brought in officers from Kempville, but when she's got 5 officers at the scene of the accident, then she doesn't have extra officers for traffic control. And she said, I'll do my best to get you 2, but I cannot do more than that with the resources that I have. And she brought in off-duty officers And I think the last off-duty officer got there around 6 in the evening to an event that started around 4. We were here at the meeting, and when we came to the meeting, there was no one there. When we went home from the meeting, there was.
I just question that because that they don't have enough off-duty officers that wouldn't come in, because when we have Spencerville Fair here, they can have 12 of them standing around up there all night, and they're still doing their duties out on the highways, I presume. I don't think they pulled them off the highways to sit up here, so
No, but in the case of an accident, they're at the scene.
I kinda question that they can't get a third officer to come in, so.
Mr. Guest, I have a question, just something that Councillor Hunter raised. The no parking signage on the corners of 44 and 21, do we have no parking signage that we can put up there? Or do we have to strictly rely on the county's people to put those up? I'd just like clarification on that.
If I may,
I'll
through the chair,
defer.
I believe within the hamlets, we can put the signs up ourselves, we don't have to rely on the county.
Do we have the signage?
Oh,
We don't.
we
Okay.
can get it, it's not,
All right,
it's not difficult to get.
okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, we've had discussion on this. I concur with Public Works that you are somewhat prepared for a situation that is coming up, and I can see that you've given some forethought and thoughts to this, and I for one will be hoping that we don't have a problem that we have to put all this into effect. If there's no other discussions, I'm going to move on with the agenda. Hearing none?
So, Mr. Chair, before we go on,
Yes.
we should make it absolutely clear then that the committee issued no direction.
We have,
We've issued no
Yeah.
direction.
well, I have a feeling, from what I've heard, that direction has already been taken and acted on in the past. I agree, there's nothing, no direction from this meeting, but I'm quite comfortable that staff has done their due diligence and will act appropriately. Counselor?
Just on that point, I'd like, we need it to be down and record it in the minutes. I'd like to see us give directions for 21 here that we erect no parking signs down there and authorize our staff to pay for the bylaw enforcement officer to be called in to make sure that the cars are moved off that corner then if there is an accident, so.
I concur with that.
Would that, if it happened through a weekend, I can certainly follow Councillor Hunter's thinking, but if it happened through a week, would our bylaw officer be somewhat on duty anyway?
If I may, through the chair, I think, our bylaw officer works an average of 10 hours per week, and
Right.
that's something we can work around. I don't think that's that big an issue. If I may offer an opinion on the no parking area, being somebody who spends an awful lot of Saturday nights in Spencerville, I can tell you that it's probably a good idea to push the no parking areas away from that corner, because even without truck traffic, that corner can get pretty dicey at times.
So the motion or the recording would be that we permanently put no parking signs up there at least until the bridge is repaired and County Road 2 is back to normal. Do we need a motion for that, or can we just act on that?
If I may, Mr. Chair, I think direction is sufficient at this time, because I think a motion probably would require something more specific than we're really prepared to deal with right now. I mean, I have no measurements or idea of how far the no parking zone needs to be in order to be effective, and I think our road superintendent needs to investigate that.
So you have your direction?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Packwood?
I wouldn't say just because of the fair, like if we're gonna do that, I'd say we put the signs there and leave them there and just enforce it at all times. Because if we run into a problem again,
Oh, that's quite possible, yes.
Yeah.
so it's best just to put them in and leave them there.
Okay. You have your direction, yeah?
Yes, thank you.
Good. Mr. Guest, I'll just, if you have any last information to share with us, or are you okay?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Good, thank you. I'm going to move on, council. Okay, we're at action information items, and the first one is the QMS policy statement update. And I believe Mr. Shaw is going to speak to this, and there is a recommendation attached to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair, basically on June 26, 2019, NSF completed its second of three in a series of audits. The auditor suggested that including the word clear in the description of drinking water supplied by the township. The committee recommends that council pass a resolution support the updated QMS policy statement and authorize staff to update the operational plan to include the new QMS policy statement. There is a draft in Appendix A with the word clear added to the policy statement for you to review tonight for you.
And it is only the word clear being added. It's not deleting anything or taking anything away from that sentence. The sentence, I believe, previously read, is committed to supplying safe, reliable, and et cetera, So by just adding the word clear, there's no deletions of any other words.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Move to accept the recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for Mr. Packwood? Thank you. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor of the recommendation?
Aye.
Aye. Carried. Thank you. MTO calls, this is 7B, MTO calls, semi-annual report, and I believe this is an information item, and I believe our fire chief will speak to this on any highlights.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this report is up till the end of June. At the bottom of page 1, just some housekeeping from 2018, there were 2 invoices that were outstanding at that time. One of them was paid. It was reduced by $477, basically the cost of 1 truck per hour. They disallowed 1 pumper because there was no fire at the scene, and the second one for 2146 was paid in full. The total received in 2018 was $40,791 from 15 incidents. On page 2 is just a summary to the end of June. A total of 17 responses between the 2 400 series highways. We submitted claims for all 17. Of the 17, 4 were eligible to be paid. 2 of them have been paid, and 2 of them were pending. At the time of this report, 2 were pending, but I believe the 2 have been approved since.
Thank you, Chief, and I know this is the mayor's pet project. I'll start with Mr. Mayor if he has any comments.
So through the chair, in 2018, 40,000 received from 15 eligible incidents. How many incidents was there in total?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I do not have that information in front of me.
Do we have copies of all the invoices, or can I get copies of all the invoices? Can I get a report of all the invoices for 2018?
Okay.
The way we used to get this was all of the invoices listed, and then short description. I think the clerk at the department prepared the report in a similar fashion back as far as actually 15, 16, 17. And the reason I ask is because we've taken this issue of non-payment of invoices, we've taken this issue to the minister, to several different ministers, as a matter of fact, at AMO conferences and Roma conferences. Haven't tried it this year in 19 yet. But at the last time that we tried it, we knew that we presented the minister with a list of all of the invoices that we had issued and showed the minister the invoices that had been paid. And at that point in time, we were only being paid for about 50% of the calls and about 50% of the dollars invoiced. And the issue that we were drawing to the minister's attention was that when we get a call from a 400 series highway and our volunteers leave their place of work and get into their trucks and drive to the scene on 401 or 416, we have provided the service, and we should be paid for that service. To us, or to me, as a political person, it's irrelevant whether we sprayed the car, disconnected the battery, or whatever. The very fact that we took our equipment to the scene is the provision of a service, and that's the issue that I hope to bring forward to the ministers again. And I hope that when we get there, we've got the documentation that we need. I'm not going to go any further with that right now. But along about October, November, December, when we're getting ready for the Roma conference, I'll be looking for it. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Gold.
Yeah, we have a serious problem, I agree with the mayor. And, jeepers, the mayor said we got 50%. Right now, just this quarter, we don't have 30%. You know, 21,000, 50% is roughly 11,000, you might as well say we have 5,000. That's, and I agree 100%. We do give them a service, and if we come there with our vehicles, that's a service, and we should get paid no matter what. I don't even care if it's a stand down. We're halfway there. We still have to go. We still have men, and we still have our equipment out there.
We do.
So, yeah, we have to do so. I don't know how, I talked to the mayor before our council meeting, and he said that he's tried the ministry. Maybe we should go with other councils and see what their fire departments, like Front of Young and Town of Prescott, Fort 16, and Kempo, and maybe get together. Or see what they do. Maybe none of them care, I don't know, but this here, I care. That's a lot of money that's outstanding. And it's not that, it's our equipment's at risk and men.
Our equipment and manpower, correct.
Men are at risk, that really ticks me off, that they don't wanna pay, so.
Okay, Deputy Mayor.
No comments at all.
Councillor.
Well, it seems to me like we've been after the government to pay for this. I talked to one company, I forget their name, I guess they're a legal company at AMO that specialized in going after the insurance companies of the cars to get money from the insurer there, but one of my pet peeves is not with the fire department responding, or even not with the government not paying for some of these calls. One of my pet peeves is the dispatchers that are taking these calls, and it's just a car that somebody's seen a car in the ditch and they call and say for emergency services to go out to it, and they get there and there's a car sitting in the ditch, nobody's injured, nobody's maybe even in the car by the time you get there sometime. I think we need a little more training on our emergency dispatchers, what they're calling for a dispatch, because somebody dials in on the cell phone going by, oh geez, a car just went in the ditch. I know there's been times over the years that by the time the fire department got there, a friend had stopped with a truck and already pulled the car out and it's gone. They're driving up and down 416 looking for, oh well, it looks like there was a car in there. We've got to get a little more training on our dispatchers when they call, somebody calls in on a cell phone. We need a little more clearance before they just automatically send fire and rescue out to something that there's nothing there.
Good point. Mr. Packwood? And I do know the mayor has discussed this with several ministers. I've been with him at these meetings, and he does fully enforce us getting paid, but he does need the numbers and the records of that. Okay, any other questions? Mr. Chief, do you want to respond to anything on that?
Certainly, Mr. Chair, I guess just a note regarding this dispatching, just to clarify, that wouldn't be our local dispatchers, it would be at the public answering point. So we call 911, I think it's North Bay, they're the ones that ask the questions. So all we would get in the local area would be a motor vehicle accident, basically, just to clarify where that is.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just?
Yes, go ahead,
Before we
sure.
go on, one of the things that we've tried to do in the past, haven't really tried it this term yet, but we tried to find allies that would come to those meetings with us. Held one meeting with a number of the mayors from the United Counties, and surprisingly, a number of the mayors weren't aware of the fact that they were only being paid for about half the calls, because it was an issue that hadn't really risen to the table. And it just wasn't a high priority for them. But one of the other avenues that we tried was the Ontario, the Fire Association, I can't remember what it's called.
Through the chair of the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs.
That's the one. And at one time we had not the president, but the chap who was about to become president, and he was quite interested in the issue, offered to intervene with us and attend a delegation with us at a ministerial meeting. But there was an election that intervened and we kind of lost contact with him. But the reason I'm asking, putting the question out is there any talk at any of the association meetings about this issue? I mean, we're not the only township that provides services on 400 series highways. When you get up around the Barrie area, it must get horrendous.
Through the chair, this is one of about 6 issues that the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs has put on as a priority, and I know they are working at this.
Is there any chance of establishing a symbiotic relationship, mutual support for each? I mean, we have the same long-range interest, the same interest. Is there any opportunity to work together?
Through the chair, I'm not sure if I understand your question, Mr. Mayor.
Well, I think it would more, it would carry more weight if I could take 4 mayors and 4 fire chiefs with me to a meeting with the minister. Would they do such a thing?
And that I'm not sure of, sir.
Leave the question hanging, Mr.
Fine.
Chairman.
Okay, fine. Okay, there is no recommendation with this, so we've had our discussion, we'll move on. Okay, the next item is 7C. It does have a recommendation to it. It's Fire Station Number 2 Working Group. You've had a chance to read the briefing note, and Chief, if there's anything you'd like to highlight here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a brief summary that, in 2017, we did the study and I identified some deficiencies. We put some money away last year. We did not act on it and we whipped it forward to this year. So I propose, just to keep things going, that we form this committee with the various stakeholders and have a council member included in that.
Okay, thank you. Discussion?
I'd like to move the recommendation.
Thank you. Looking for a seconder? Mr. Packwood, thank you. The recommendation is that committee recommend that council appoint a council member to the Station Number 2 Working Group. And you're looking for 1 member of council, is that correct? Okay, thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor?
Get inquiries first with this?
Of course, yes.
The way I read this committee, the recommendation here, it appears that council has already approved building the new fire station. I didn't know we've ever approved building the new fire station. I thought we'd approved looking into all aspects of whether reconstruction of the deficiencies and stuff on the other one.
If I may, through the chair, I don't think that's the case, Councillor Hunter, that decision has definitely not been made, and it's certainly one of the things that this working group is going to need to consider.
Well, if I can get in here, Mr.
Go
Chair.
ahead, go ahead.
I move the recommendation because I really feel it needs more discussion. But I understand Councillor Hunter's concern when I read the second sentence in the second paragraph. This group will consult with an architect to develop drawings and cost estimates to provide a fire station that meets the requirements of a modern volunteer service. I think maybe that signals that the process has gone just a tiny bit further than I had anticipated when I moved the recommendation, but still feel that a group is required and a council member on the group is a necessary thing. I just don't know whether we're at the point of engaging an architect.
If I may, Mr. Chair?
You may.
I think an architect is going to be required regardless of whether we do renos or build new. We need somebody to help us develop plans and specifications and costs.
Yeah, the broad general expertise,
Exactly.
in the sense of the broad general expertise.
I'm in all favor of the motion, as long as we're not committing that we're saying we're gonna automatically build a new fire station here.
But certainly not the intent.
It seems that way.
And the only paragraph that well, it's not a paragraph, it's just a sentence. It's the last sentence in the first paragraph that says, "The study does not recommend the ongoing use of the existing facility as a fire station." I haven't been in that many fire stations, but I have been in a few, and I also have been to areas where what we've got would be welcomed in some areas. But anyway, we have the recommendation, we have it duly moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Before I call the question, I'm going to call the question. All in favor of the recommendation? Aye. It's carried.
Well, should ask for opposed opinions.
Opposed, if any? Councillor Hunter and Deputy Mayor Deschamps. Thank you. Okay, 7B, and this is the rescue truck RFP update. And Chief, I think you're going to highlight some issues here too.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So during this year's budget deliberations, we set aside some money towards a vehicle purchase next year. We discussed the need to probably award it early due to the 12-month estimated build for the truck. So as such, we issued an RFP. It closed on September 10th. We got three submissions, and the prices range from $338,000 to $497,000. The proposals remain open for a period of 60 days, and to this point, we have not had an opportunity to review the submissions in detail.
That is your committee that you're
Correct.
talking about.
Correct.
That's the last sentence. This is an information item, so there's no recommendation here. Any questions, concerns around the table? We'll start with Mr. Packwood. Councillor Hunter.
I'd like to see what the list of what they're providing on this, what we're paying for what this truck all entails before I'd be comfortable in accepting a bid on it. I'd like to see what the specifications we asked for and what they're offering us. You know, we see it on our plow trucks and stuff, we asked for it. I think we should know what we're buying here.
Agreed. Deputy Mayor?
Haven't really had any, I mean, that's what it says in the last sentence, really haven't had any time to actually put all three together and see differences versus prices, that sort of thing.
That is correct.
And but I assume that all that bid, did, I mean, again, maybe you don't know that either, but did comply with, all, parts of the RFP, like what, you know, everything we were looking for? Or you're still not even that far?
So it indicates here that there was a committee comprised of fire department members was formed, and through several meetings, specifications for the new rescue truck was agreed upon. Now, my question is, will the same people that comprise that committee be the committee that's reviewing these three submissions? Will it be the same people?
Through the chair, that was the intent, yes.
Okay, all right, so now, the group that agreed on the specifications will be vetting the submissions to ensure that they're getting what they asked for. So that gives me a certain degree of comfort there. Now, the next thing is, and I want to refresh my memory, it seemed to me that what we were doing here was we were going to be changing out, if I can use that word, a rescue truck. We had a truck that was on the fleet that was used for that purposes, that was going to be coming off fleet. This one was going to replace it, but that still did not get us to the point of, or still hanging in the background was the issue of purchasing a new tanker or fire truck. Have I got something confused here?
Through the chair, no, Mr. Mayor, we did go down the path of the, we've got the van 1 that this would be replacing, and then the Ford F-250 that had the box on the back.
So this replaces van 1,
Correct.
and what's about the F-150?
It's still just hanging in the fleet, sir.
Your pardon?
It's still in the fleet right now,
And it stays?
until it's due to be replaced, but its replacement would likely be a strictly passenger type vehicle, not a specialized fire apparatus.
Okay, and then with regard to fire trucks? What, just remind me of the timeline.
I'm sorry?
So we're looking at the purchase of 3 units?
No,
2?
just one right now.
Yeah, just one right now, but
Correct.
how soon to the next one?
I would suggest that the 1996 pickup could be replaced for roughly the same cost as the Public Works vehicle that was just purchased, for approximately $40,000.
Okay, and now go to the bigger stuff.
I believe we would probably have another tanker by 2023.
Oh,
would be a
okay, all right,
recommendation.
not imminent.
No.
Gotta keep reminding me, I can't remember all this stuff.
Councillor Rowe, any comments, questions?
Just that pickup is the one that was donated to us by Hydro, or by the CNN. That's that old one, eh? Gee,
That's correct.
Okay, further discussion, seeing none, hearing none, we're going to move on, thank you. And we're now at 7C, and this is Councillor Dillaba's turn at bat, we'll say.
Thank you, sir. Deb, can you help me out? Do I read this motion?
I think that's a good place to start the discussion, yes.
See if I can get a second, eh?
That'd be a question.
I don't see anything in there just at the moment.
I'm making a motion to regenerate the Cardinal Legion Park. So I will read this motion that I have in front of me. Whereas the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal update its economic development strategy in 2017. And whereas the update for top 10 priority actions include a new item for medium-term accomplishments. Undertake a waterfront plan to explore and incorporate the best and most efficient use of the Edwardsburg Cardinal waterfront. Now therefore being resolved that the Committee of the Whole recommends that the Council, 1, strike a subcommittee of the township staff and 2 members of council to explore and develop a waterfront regeneration project designed to Cardinals Legion Park area. And 2, if required, authorize expenditure up to $15,000 to retain a third-party consultant to assist with design and costing of the project. And 3, task the subcommittee with exploring grant opportunities to assist the funding of this project.
We've heard Mr. Dillaba's, or Councillor Dillaba's motions. Looking for a seconder?
I'll second.
Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Do you have anything further, Mr. Councillor Dillabaugh,
just
that you'd like to draw our attention to?
Just before and after, I broke it down to 3 phases of what I would like to do. First phase would be doing the boat launch area from below up to the Legion parking lot, and then from the Legion up to phase 2 would be up by the volleyball court. And then phase 3 would be volleyball court up to the end where the divers are. I'd like to concentrate, if we had to do it, phase 1, 2, and 3. I'd love to do it. If you guys wanna pass something and we do it all in all one shot, I would love that. Anyways, that's what I like to concentrate on, is phase 1, 2, and 3. Phase 1 being the boat launch area,
Thank you, Mr. Dillabaugh.
which includes a waterfront, walkway, etc.
We'll start at this end with Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so I like the way this is going. My only problem is with the second operative clause here. If required, authorize expenditure of up to $15,000 to retain a third-party consultant to assist with design and costing. And I guess my concern here is that I know we haven't included this $15,000 expenditure in a 2019 budget, at least I don't think we have. And so if there was some way, and I'm not questioning the fact that the assistance of a third party may be required. I'm not questioning that. But what I am questioning is that the intent of the second operative clause is to authorize the expenditure of an unbudgeted $15,000. And I can't support that particular clause. I can sort of look at it from the point of view of appointing the committee and authorizing the committee to come back to the 2020 budget discussions with a plan. And if the plan that they bring back to the 2020 budget discussion includes hiring of a consultant in the 2020 budget year, then maybe by the time they come to the budget discussions, they will have a more accurate amount of, a more accurate realization of the amount that would be required. 15,000 doesn't seem out of whack, but I just feel a little bit better if they had gone to an RFQ or something like that and said, well, we got 4 responses and, you know, it's gonna be 8,000 or 10 or 12, so that we would know. But anyway, I just have a problem with item number 2, clause number 2. So I'm hoping that we can find our way to work around clause number 2 by changing it's the word authorized expenditure of up to 15,000, and that money is not in the 2019 budget.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, so generally supporting the, or completely supporting the best and most effective use of Cardinal's waterfront. But, you know, having sat on CDC before and having sat through a public meeting where people shared some ideas, it ended up being a somewhat positive discussion. I think moving it forward, if we're not going to qualify for any grants in the November stream, either through, I can't remember the letters of them, the November 12th or
Infrastructure.
November 12th, the Trillium and the Trillium. If we're not, if there's no possibility of getting those done, you know, I'd prefer to see something like this come back to just full discussion at CDC, where, you know, the use of CIP money and talking about the McSweeney report again would be relevant for that discussion, and that 15,000, at least the way that I read the CIP and the way that I read what the McSweeney report says in relation to the CIP, that 15,000 could be used to get the money from that CIP. So I think that might alleviate the number 2 concern if it came back to CDC for full discussion and we could find that money in there. But my only concern with it is that this doesn't have a public consultation portion, and it's nice that I think that we know what's best for the waterfront, but if it's up to me and it's a 20-year you know, plan that we're planning ahead going forward for everyone in our township, we probably should listen to what they want their waterfront to look like, not just what we want it to look like. So, you know, taking into those consideration, I mean, I generally support, or I do completely support what Councillor Dillabaugh has brought forward, just with maybe some tweaking and maybe deferring it back to CDC.
Thank you. Councillor Hunter?
Well, I think there's lots of development and stuff we can do along the waterfront. As far as the subcommittee goes, I think that was the whole purpose when we first developed the community CDC there was in their ballpark especially when we put recreation in with it this term to come up with IDs. I think we can get run over by having committees formed all over the place. And I think I agree with Deputy Mayor, it should be a long-range plan. I don't think we really need to worry about a consultant off the idea until we actually find out what's really needed. I think the biggest concern at the waterfront has been the docks, and we look ahead on the next order of motion here of information items. Our recreation facility manager has put together, I think, a very good and economic proposal for looking after the dock systems, and I think that's the main concern of everybody in the Cardinal and the back area that uses the dock is these docks. So I'd be more in line to look at what our facility manager has and support that maybe right quick, and then sit down and take some time to decide what we're actually doing with the rest of the park and the development of the walking area and the dive area, and the beach has been brought up and different things that have been proposed, and parking lot changed around and stuff. I think that's something we need to look at a long-range plan, but I think that our facility manager's proposal here, I think that's been the key concern all this year and prior years, is over these docking systems, and I was quite, hold my more response for it later, but I think it's a plan that could get a lot of satisfaction and give us some time to worry about the rest of the development, so.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Councillor Hunter. I did renege in not mentioning that the boat docks were coming up on the next agenda item. Mr. Packwood?
Councillor Hunter said everything.
Well,
Sorry for shooting your grass.
okay, so Mr. Dillabaugh, I'll just, Mr. Mayor, did you have something else?
Yeah, I'm going to try to find a way of moving this forward, taking into account the comments of both Deputy Mayor Deschamps and Councillor Hunter, and the initiative that's been brought forward by Councillor Dillabaugh. So I'm going to suggest that the motion go forward with clause 2 removed, and I'm going to make a motion that, and it's an amendment, that that the operative clause number 2 be dropped. And I'm gonna be looking for a seconder to second that amendment. And I'm gonna speak, I should have a seconder first before I speak to it. Is there anybody that would second an amendment to drop that clause number 2? And then I'll speak to it. Maybe I've gotta speak to it to get a seconder.
You might.
Might have to, maybe I will, if I, with the indulgence of the chair.
Go right ahead.
The point that I'm thinking about is that if we appoint the subcommittee of staff and 2 members of council, it's to explore and develop a regeneration project. That does not preclude that committee from coming to CDC with their ideas and getting ideas from CDC and working with CDC, nor does it preclude that subcommittee from holding some public consultation of some form, nor does it preclude them from coming to council for 2020 budget discussions. What it does do, it removes authorization to expend $15,000 that isn't in this year's budget. I don't know how we could authorize an expenditure of $15,000 that isn't in this year's budget. So I'm looking for a seconder to see that removed.
Oh, looking for a seconder. Point of order, Madam CAO. Can the chair make a second?
I don't really think so, Mr.
Okay, that's what I thought. That's why I wanted that point, because if I was not sitting in this chair, I would second that. But I am sitting in this chair at the moment. Okay, we have a mover, and I'm looking for a seconder to eliminate clause number 2 and moving this forward to the CDC.
No seconder, the amendment fails.
That is correct.
Now you deal with the full motion.
We have a mover and a seconder for the full motion, including clause number 2.
So it's still open for
It
discussion
is,
at this point?
if we want to discuss it, otherwise I'll call the question.
Yeah, so I still have, if I may, Mr. Chair. Councillor Dillabaugh, at this point, feeling the discussion at the table, would you consider possibly sort of removing your motion and asking that it be included to the next CDC committee meeting?
No.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, we have a mover and we have a seconder, and I'm going to call the question.
Recorded vote, please.
And we'll have a recorded vote, and I'll start with Mr. Packwood.
Yay.
Councillor Hunter,
Nay.
Deputy Mayor,
Yay.
Mr. Mayor,
Nay.
and Councillor.
Yay.
That was a yay,
Yes.
and I will vote as a yay. Motion is carried. Thank you all. We'll move on to 7F, and this is from our Facilities Department. There is a recommendation with this, and Mr. Spencer, you'll be giving us some highlights on this. This, by the way, this is pretty well prepared. I like this format, thank you. If you would just carry on.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'd like to thank some members of staff for helping create the document as well. In the fall of 2018, we spearheaded a project. It was the former Deputy Mayor, Peggy Taylor, that worked with South Nation to get funding available for the new dock that was installed last week. It was something that was supposed to go in the spring, but obviously because of the water levels and some issues at South Nation, that didn't materialize. So it's in now, and, I feel that it looks good, and, I know there's been some comment about people commenting that it's not a dock to put your boat up against, but that's not what the intent was for when the original project was started. It was for a fishing dock. So, moving forward, what I have done is I've come up with a plan. I've met with the contractor that built the existing dock that we just installed, on site a couple weeks ago. And the idea would be to, basically have carbon copies of the existing dock without the railings constructed. Some, just a slight, variation in the length, in the size, but the idea would be to put another section at the canteen area, where we've had one in the past. And then over at the boat launch area, the idea would be to put an additional 2 there. Take the ones that are out and put an additional 2. Now, what we would be doing, it'd be a 2-phase project. Phase 1 would be to put the necessary posts in, so that it would be permanent on land, so that the dock would always, like the stationary part would always be on site and in place, no matter what level the water was. We would be able to put the docks in, and that's the whole idea, that in the spring, if we continue to have high water, that the docks will be able to go in, and they'll be able to continue the length of the fishing season for the people that are using it. The idea is to, as I've indicated, is to do the installation of the techno metal poles. There would be upwards of 10 to 12 of those that would be installed. And the idea would be to do that this fall. And then we would go to tender in the new year, providing council wishes to go forward with our 2020 budget deliberation.
That's it in a nutshell then, Mr. Spencer?
It is.
And the expenditure for 2019 would be approximately $6,000, if I'm reading that correctly.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, I'm going to open it up for discussion. I'll start at this end, Councillor Dillabaugh.
Thank you. Mike, the boat launch area that you're proposing, floating dock 6x20, we have 2 there now on each side, 8x16 and 8x20, so we're gonna go down to 1 6x20
No, there would
on
be,
each side,
that's correct.
so we're gonna be less dockage there. Because right now we have 8x16 and an 8x20 where we can tie up our boats.
There's gonna
right
be
now.
there's going to be 2
6x20.
6x20 docks there.
Right,
That's
But
correct.
right now-
One on each side.
right. Right now we have 2 8x16s and 8x20s as right today
That's correct.
on both sides.
But those docks are in rough shape, and the idea would be to replace them.
No, and I can appreciate that, but we're going less dockage. That's all I'm saying. You only have a 6x20.
We're going with 46 feet of docking on each side.
You're going with 6x20 feet of docking. You got 2 ramps.
Oh, I'm sorry, and there's 2 stationary docks.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So really what we
Reduce
have
that
is
by
1,
14.
we have 2 6x20 docks to tie up to.
That's correct.
And that's it. Where now we have an 8x16 as we speak, and an 8x20 on each side. That's all I'm saying.
Right now, you have 1 on each side.
Right,
Now, at the boat launch itself.
right, 8x16 and an 8x20
That's
on both
correct.
sides.
That's correct.
With the new ones, we're only gonna have 2 6x20s,
That's
so we're gonna
correct.
have less dockage, that's all I'm saying.
Right.
And I'd rather have more dockage than less dockage, that's all I have.
I always thought the intent at the boat launch, though, was merely just to get to have the dock for the boats to get in and out. It wasn't an area to be able to tie up and leave your boat there.
No,
So
but it
if
could
we,
be.
if we provide, and then that's fine.
Yeah.
If that's the will of council, then we can put larger docks in, but I was always under the understanding that the dockage area there was to simply load and unload. And it wasn't to be able to tie up.
But that's fine, but I'm just saying, we have the dock, it's now 8x16 and 8x20, and we're losing that. And if something ever happened that we maybe had a decent major fishing derby, you would sure appreciate those docks. And not the 6x20 that you're offering. That's all I'm looking at. I'm looking at the future, we're gonna put that much money into it.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding, but the 8-foot part is the width, and the 16-foot part is the length, correct? So presently, we have 36 feet in length, and we're talking about going to 40 feet in length, so we're gaining 4 feet in length. But we're losing
The width.
2 feet in width, but we're not
Correct.
talking about changing the way that they're set up presently.
No.
It's the exact same
Exactly.
setup, so we're actually gaining 4 feet in length,
Length,
but
but
we're
not as
losing a
wide.
tiny bit in width, correct?
That's correct.
So really, the way that they'd be set up is at the end of the walkway, if they're set up the same way they are on that picture, you'd actually, on one of the docks, you'd actually be gaining 4 feet in length.
It's,
The 6x12 length is coming off. It's a stationary dock, but it's just a walk-on.
the stationary
Right.
dock will be on land.
Right, just like the
And-
one that's down there now with the
Yes.
checker,
And then the ramp will be connected to that. The ramp
Right.
will go down
the 514.
to the 6x20 section.
Right.
It's a walkway.
And what I'm saying is, right now, we have an 8x16 there, plus an 8x20. You see, your 5x14,
Which
you
is
can't
36
do anything
Which is
with.
36 feet.
Your 5x14 length, ramp, it's a ramp, and the 6x12 length of a stationary dock is to tie on to the ramp, that's all I'm saying.
But the 2 floating docks are bigger.
6x20,
They're 6x20.
right now, we got we got them down there 8x20,
An 8x16,
and 8x16, 2 on each side.
1 on each side.
One on each
One
side.
One on each side.
Yeah,
So you're gaining,
well, this one's 4 foot longer,
this is 4 feet longer.
narrower, but that don't make any difference for tying up to.
I'm going to let the mayor jump in here. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
There are two issues on the table here. The first is the 2019 issue, $6,000 expenditure for 2 stationary docks on either side, 1 on each side. The second issue on the table is what happens in 2020, which comes out of the 2020 budget, which we're not at that point yet. So can we separate those 2 issues and just deal with the 2019 issue for now, which has a $6,000 expenditure tied to it? Because I have all kinds of problems with the 2020 proposal, and I don't know why with this briefing note, I've got these pictures. These pictures don't enter into this discussion at all. These are the pictures of the handicap ramp. What I would like to see is a drawing of what's proposed for 2020, including dimensions.
I think what-
And I think the bothersome part for me is that we have 2, what I call perfectly good docks, floating docks in the water now. And those 2 docks were purchased within the last 8 years, or maybe 10. And I don't understand why we would throw them away. I mean, they're not new, but they're not derelict, they're usable. So can we separate the 2019 discussion from the 2020 discussion and make the decision on installing of the technical metal poles, $6,000, 2019 expenditures? That becomes the permanent on-land installation to which the floating docks in the spring will be attached. We just deal with that issue, Mr. Chairman?
We can, yes.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
To Mr. Spencer, so if we went with what that suggestion just was, would would we still be able to use those posts or those poles to tie up the docks that we presently have? If we were to say that we weren't using the new floating docks, we were to get rid of those, can we still continue along and use the metal pole and the new ramp to hook on to the existing floating docks?
Yes, you will be able to.
Okay.
Okay. Counselor? Mr.
I don't have
Packwood?
much to say, only I'd move a motion that we go ahead and authorize the $6,000 put in the poles for this fall.
Would you like to make that motion?
I did.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that? Mr. Packwood? Was staff able to get that motion in some reasonable form?
Well, it's the recommendation less the last 8 or 10 words.
That's basically correct, yes. And so you're just taking out, we'll take out the "and phase 2 incorporated"
Yeah.
thereon. Okay. Is staff comfortable with that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, yes.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, and we have a seconder for it. I'll call the question.
If discussion's still
Discussion,
open,
go
I still
ahead.
have a few comments
Sure.
to make, and I mean, I think, Mr. Spencer, what you've brought forward is excellent. It's well thought out, it's well planned out. From my perspective and being around the Legion a lot this summer, we did suffer high water, and it was unfortunate that we weren't able to use that area this year, and this seems to alleviate some of those concerns going forward. I just want to, on the record, express my displeasure, though, that it took till September 16th to see this report come forward, planning to deal with what we see forward. My expectation might have been that we would have seen this in July or even June, instead of hearing, well, we're gonna get the docks installed, we're gonna get the docks installed. So with respect to this plan, I think it's great, I think it looks forward, and I think it's a job well done. I just would have liked to have seen it a few months ago.
The seconder is
Mr. Packwood.
Mr. Packwood, correct? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor on the motion?
Aye.
It's carried. Okay, so we'll discuss the docks in 2020. Okay, the agenda is now at 7G, an information item, and it's weather monitoring and road patrol electronic upgrade. And when I first looked at this, I saw all these squiggly lines, and I said, is that all that we look after? And then I turned the page, and more squiggly lines, and more squiggly lines. So, and I believe, Mr. Guest, are you going to speak to this?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The report itself is in front of you tonight as an item to bring up to speed on some of the duties that we do and how we're doing them differently now. This is a requirement of Ontario Regulation 23902, both winter and summer monitoring of our roads. And we've employed a program from OGRA and another program that's an offshoot of the OGRA to provide that service for us. And as you can see, yes, we do have some roads here, some roads there. In the winter, we are supposed to have 2 patrol routes that give us routes that are comparable roads, so that I don't have to travel every road in the winter. And it is to see whether we have ice buildup or snow coming in, and we have blowing snow. In the summer, it's more to the technical side of it, whether we have, a bad section of asphalt or culvert that's failed, or a sign missing, brush that needs to be cut away from a stop sign, that sort of thing. So this is, really saved us time and given us the, we're in compliance, by doing our patrols, and, I don't have to do them, write them down, driving down the road, so it's all done by a little monitor on my, windshield. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good, thank you, Mr. Guest. Discussion, if any? Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry.
Okay, so I'm looking at page 1 of 3, which is sort of the second page, the outburst sign of the first page. So how do I read this chart?
The chart is red. I have 2 patrol routes, as I just mentioned, for winter. This is a winter patrol. And I utilized the different patrol routes, and this happens to be a snapshot between the 25th and the 29th. It says that we have, one of the things that has to be changed is all of our roads are class 4 or greater, and right now it's just reporting as all our roads were class 2. That's just a minor housekeeping, but it says patrol route 2 was used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, and we're in compliance. And again, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 times for patrol route number 1. So, and the patrol route number 1 is shown on the next page over, 2 of 3, and patrol 2 is on page 3 of 3.
So, in other words, on the 25th of March, there was a patrol from 8 to 10, and then another one from 10 till noon,
Yep.
and another one from 2 to 4,
Yep.
and another one from 12 to 2, that's kind of backwards, and then another one from 2 to 4, and then on the 28th of March from 10 till 12, and then another one from 12 to 2. So each one is about 2 hours long?
It can be, or I do partial route and then come back to it, depending on the weather, whether I need to get people out. I would do a partial and come back, get staff out on the roadways, and then, or I do the whole thing, depending on the weather.
Now, so if I go over onto the next page, which is the one starting with New Wexford, it's route class 5.
Okay, so you're into the summer patrols now.
Okay, because it says summer at the top. So what changes now for the summer? The frequency?
Yes, frequency, and this is where we get into our class of roads, and a class 4 road has to be patrolled twice every month, and class 5, 5 has to be patrolled or once a month. We don't, class 6s don't have to be, but we do fill them in with our class 5s and do them all.
Okay, so it says rural class 4, route class 4, 68.33% of this route has been patrolled with a total distance of 98.73 kilometers. Alerts, what does that mean?
If there's an alert, I'm able to do an alert right on my screen based on a stop sign down, for instance, or a branch across the road, that sort of thing.
Forms? What does forms mean?
Forms would be a form I would fill out for a section of gravel road which has got potholes on it. And I would fill that out as required grading and pass it off to staff to grade it within the time frame we're allowed.
Number of patrols required?
Yes, 1.
What does status pending mean?
Pending means that I have not completed the full patrol in this case.
Okay, so then on rural class 4, and is that route marked someplace?
Yes, sir. It's
Okay, that's it on the next page in the red.
it would be yeah, marked at the top, rural class 4. It would be page 3 of 8.
Yeah. So
Okay.
now, when it tells me that 68.33% of this route has been patrolled with a total distance of 98.73 kilometers, how do I know what condition those red lines are in?
Those red lines are the ones I patrolled.
Yeah?
The purple lines are the roads I still have to patrol.
Yeah, but doesn't that, how do I know from this report what condition those red lines are in?
If there was a report of a condition on those roads, I would have under forms or alerts, there'd be an entry saying that XYZ is wrong, and we have to get it fixed.
So on this whole page, there's nothing wrong with any road?
In this case, up to this point, no. And again, it's subjective to, or not, sorry, it's not subjective, it is based on the 239 standards. So a pothole has to be so big. And, or a bump has to be so high. Deflection has to be so high. So
So if I look at Cardinal, class 5, 83.21% of this route has been patrolled with a total distance of 9.9, but I don't know what time periods according to this.
It only gives you the time periods when I've reached the standard. And it's, if you see to the right there, Cardinal is still pending. So this is work in progress. In fact, I should have brought the one today because it's complete. We're in compliance.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the opportunity to ask a few questions here, and I do appreciate the use of the technology. It's just that, from an insurance point of view, I'd like to be able to understand the technology so that I know to what extent we've mitigated risk. We're gonna have a risk management seminar on Thursday, and what I'm trying to determine is how useful this report would be at a risk management discussion.
If I could, Mr. Chair, the neat thing about this whole system is I'm only human, I only see what I see. If I miss something, it is all videoed. And it goes to the cloud, and if, for instance, we have an accident, we can call up that period prior to the accident and see what the condition of that section of road was in. So it goes along with the risk management you're talking about, Mr. Mayor. And as far as we work with the experience that I have and what I teach our patrollers, that the risks that are out there that need to be looked at based on the minimum standards. And then the next step is to take it, and should we have an issue, we have a video at hand to help us show that they were in compliance, or we missed something. The likelihood is that they will be in compliance.
Well, but if I look, for example, at rural class 4, 68% of the route has been patrolled, so I'm looking at rural class 4. So if the accident occurred in one of the purple sections, I really have no data. I guess a good example would be Froome Road and Marine Station Road. I would have no data for that.
And Froome Road is a class 4. Class 4 roads are required to be patrolled every 2 weeks, so we would have the previous 2 weeks' data, and that would apply, that would give us the ability to say, hey, we in the last 2 weeks have patrolled this, it's just not in this section of this 2 weeks yet, it will come at the end of this section, so we are covered that way.
Doesn't give the lawyer much to own the case about.
But it does give them the video, and the videos were.
Not if it hasn't been driven.
it gives a video from the last time it was done, which was no more than 2 weeks before that. Okay?
Mr. Chair?
I'm going to go with Deputy Mayor Deschamps first.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Guest, from what I read and from what I see, it's been a short period of time that we've been using the technology, November till now, less than a year. But what I am, at least I think that I'm reading, is that it's making your job more efficient, and that of the public works staff is making it more efficient. And certainly that in the long run, it's going to give them the availability to make them far more effective, as well as being efficient. The greater usefulness, or the better we get at using this app. Am I correct in making that assumption from what I'm reading?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Deputy Mayor Deschamps, yes, that, the more data we get, the better defense we have. And unfortunately, I can only give you a snapshot here, and if you know, if someday somebody wants to see the snapshot from months gone by, then I'd be happy to provide the video for that. And I am learning. I'm getting pretty good at it. My job now is to teach the other staff to become as good at finding these things, and sometimes they do find more, and efficient on this app. So we have three people that in our staff out of 6 that do this periodically through either the winter months or the summer months. So, yes.
Yeah, and just a continuation with that, going forward for the efficiency portion of that. With the publishers of the app, with the like sort of the troubleshooting parts, that sort of thing, do they ever offer, or have they offered to have to look at our routing to make sure that it is the most efficient and effective routes that we travel in relation to the data that you collect?
Through Mr. Chair, are you referring to snowplow routes?
If it was snow plowing, sure.
Okay, they stay away from that because that is you can't sit in Toronto in an office and think of the best way to do it. You've got to be here. But they did work with me to make these routes, not only the patrol routes, but we also have our plow routes in there as well. So this is the whole OGRA, Ontario Good Roads, is trying to make us more aware of how we can better be more efficient, get our routes down pat so that everybody knows what they are, and they can be interchangeable between plow routes. So this plow can go to this route and vice versa.
Sure.
So we're being more effective that way as well. And I think in the long run, this will just make us more efficient in general.
That's good. No, great, thank you.
Mr. Packwood.
When you're videoing, can you actually put voice inputs into it also?
As
Like
I go,
comments?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just push a button on that one and start talking. So it's really good that way.
Okay, this is information only, no recommendation here. Any further discussion? Thank you, we'll move on. And we're going now to 7H, no parking zone, South and Irving Streets. We do have a recommendation with this. The recommendation reads that committee recommends that council continue the practice of temporarily creating a no parking zone on Irving and South Streets during the Spencerville Fair. Do I have a mover for the recommendation?
Do I discuss it first?
We can, yes? Go ahead.
Well, I'm the one that brought this forward, and I spoke to a few of the people after Spencerville fair, before Spencerville Fair, they thought it was great, they thought the signs were permanent going up there and they're gonna be enforced. If we don't have a bylaw and have these signs permanent, they can't be enforced, and that's just what happened Spencerville Fair Day, they just park right in front of them, and we have no way of enforcing them, because it's not a bylaw to say that we can charge them for parking there, because we just put the signs up, so. I still think we need a permanent bylaw in place to have no parking on one side of these streets, because it's not just Spencerville Fair that they get blocked up. They have different events at the mill that blocks them up, they have social parties that take place on it that they block on both sides of the street. And I think it needs to be a permanent, no parking bylaw up here to put these in place, so.
I'm going to start at this end of the table then for discussion purposes. Mr. Packwood?
I agree with Councillor Hunter for the simple reason, I've seen those streets, and if there was ever an emergency, trying to get a first responder down there, it's almost impossible, really. So I think they should be permanent.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah.
Do you want a few minutes to think about it?
I don't know that it's gonna change what I have to say. Yeah, you can move on. Sure.
Mr. Mayor?
Well, I'm not here enough to be able to comment, so I'm going to defer to Councillor Hunter and Mr. Packwood. If you're saying that this is becoming a problem on these two streets, I'm prepared to, I hate parking bylaws, but at
Yeah,
the
me
same
too.
time, if that's what it takes to solve it, then that's what it takes to solve it. Now we'll enforce it.
And,
One further
sure.
question, I think we already have a parking bylaw, do we not?
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, we just would add these to the streets, yeah, okay.
Councilor Dillabaugh?
Director of Operations, your thoughts, you're here a lot, kinda like your little input on this. You signed it to, just for the Spencerville Fair.
So, through the chair, one of the reasons why we looked at the fair, and naturally, the recommendation was made prior to the fair weekend, just with the timing of the report. Naturally hoping that this would be effective over the weekend, that individuals using some of those streets would abide by the no parking end of it. One of the reasons that we didn't want to make that permanent is that there's limited streets within Spencerville, and if we start placing no parking in almost all the streets in Spencerville, I'm a little concerned that we're just compounding the problem in some of the other secondary streets within the village. There's no doubt that there's a problem on Fair weekend, and certainly some of those events that take place at the mill. However, I'm not sure on a once in a blue moon social gathering at one of those houses that we would be expecting people to park 3 or 4 blocks away. That's in a nutshell why we were hoping that by utilizing the no parking on those bigger events, that might curb the issue. It would appear by some of the comments that is not the case.
So they just ignored the no parking signs and parked anyway?
It would appear that was the case.
Geez, I was up there after the fair and I thought it was great going down through that street. I did it on purpose.
When was it? You went down
2
through it?
o'clock in the afternoon, 2:15.
You didn't go down through it at 10 o'clock.
I don't know about 10, but I went down 2:15. The whole thing was cleared.
Freight was gone then.
I'm going to come back to Deputy Mayor Kitchener.
Listening to the Director of Operations, it echoes a lot of the same thoughts that I'm having on parking in these events. We want festivals, we want these events to be well attended, and pretty accessible, for everyone. We wanna make sure that our community and our businesses are supported with ample and if not excellent, good areas to park. And so for looking at, times in which it creates issues, I think we've recognized, a few times that it creates an issue, and safety seems to be a concern, and for me, I think, trying to enforce a bylaw, if there's a bylaw there for passing no parking during those festivals, like the recommendation for during the fair, or if there's another festival that needs to be to have that same recommendation attached to it, I would be more likely to support that than a full-time parking ban. I think it's better to have more parking than not enough. So.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, we have a recommendation. I'm looking for a mover. I'm looking for a mover.
So the recommendation is what's here? Like that committee recommends that council continue the practice of
doing what they're doing now.
I will move the recommendation as it is written.
I'll second it.
And we have a seconder. Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Oh, sorry.
So, thinking of the implications here, so we continue the practice of temporarily creating no parking zone on Irving and South Street during the Spencerville Fair. And we know that that is an unenforceable thing because we haven't given it bylaw status. So we haven't really moved the yardsticks at all here. Is there some way of moving the yardsticks through the chair to the staff? Is it possible to amend the bylaw to create temporary no parking zones on Irving and South Street during the Spencerville Fair weekend, for example? Can the bylaw be amended in that fashion?
I'd have to do the research, Mr. Mayor. I have no idea whether temporary no parking zones are enforceable under bylaw or not.
I hate the idea of imposing parking restrictions for all the reasons that have been mentioned, but I am very aware of safety concerns. Fire truck can't get down the street kind of thing. The eventuality is not a high risk eventuality, but an ambulance can't get down the street.
If I may.
Go ahead.
I think I can agree with the mayor's concern for safety during the Spencerville Fair weekend, but from a resident viewpoint on the rest of the year standpoint, I don't see the rest, like parking there, I don't think is a huge issue other than a few times at the mill and certainly during Spencerville Fair. So if there was a possibility of adapting a bylaw or making a small change so that it only be during Spencerville Fair on those two streets, then great, change the recommendation or leave it as it is and do some further review to see if we can do it through bylaw.
If we leave it as it is, and we do the research on the parking bylaw, if we can do, issue charges, with the temporary signs, that would give staff a bit of time to do that research. Is that possibly taken as the intent of this recommendation? Or do we have to change the recommendation?
If I may, Mr. Chair, the recommendation just basically continues what we're doing now. So
Correct.
there's no effect of it, trying to word things in positive, but, I just think staff needs more time to review the suggestion that a temporary bylaw can be passed that would allow, parking enforcement. I have no idea. I mean, you see it in the city where you're not allowed to park Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 9 till noon, and those kinds of things, but whether or not you can
Left,
say from
first item.
September this to September that. I just don't know.
We're going down to, Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
Okay, so in order to try to move the issue along a little bit and still give the staff an opportunity to do the work that they would have to do, and not having much luck with amendments here tonight, so we'll try a second one.
No, you're not.
So I'm gonna put forward an amendment, looking for a second. And we would add the following words to the recommendation that appears on the page. And that the parking bylaw be so amended if possible. It gives the staff an opportunity to come back and say it wasn't possible. And that the parking bylaw be so amended if possible. Looking for a second, trying a second shot.
Yeah, I can second that.
Do we have a seconder for that?
That accomplishes what I'm.
Staff comfortable with that at the moment?
Sure. I can, if I may, Mr. Chair, I will not have this ready in time for council.
No.
Correct.
You get till next Spencer Road Fair.
I'm glad you said.
Oops. Through the chair, of course.
Okay, do you have further,
I really don't see what council's problem is putting a parking bylaw on here. The residents don't park in these streets all winter for snow plowing, there's never any cars, well, odd time there's one. You're worried about the residents having parking, the residents all find their parking, it's the people that aren't residents that park on the streets here and cause the problem. The residents, when there's events on or stuff, they don't have their cars parked in the streets. They all have parking along, every house along there has parking to park in, so,
just one minute, I want council.
so I don't see the problem here, and we shouldn't do nothing, especially in South Street going down the mill. Somebody's gonna need emergency services there someday, and it's gonna come back on us because we didn't enforce an area that a emergency vehicle could get through when we know when it's been brought up at the council and it's been proposed to us that it isn't safe. So I'm fine if they don't wanna put a bylaw in force, that's fine, but just remember, if something happens, we're the ones that had the authority to stop them from parking there and we didn't.
But I think what we're saying here now with this new recommendation is that we're going to research the parking bylaw to,
For one event.
well,
There's a lot of other events take place that they park in those streets.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, and being someone who frequents those events and who struggles to find adequate and ample parking, we want events, we want to draw people other than our residents into our small towns, and we want to promote that to other areas and bring people in. While I understand your concern, I think, you know, the fair is the largest concern for that time, and you know, we have other events at the mill, but we want people to come to the town. We want to be attractive. We don't want them parking, 12 blocks away. It's not like there's a municipal parking lot there that people can park in. It's crazy to me to park, to have a full-time, year-long no parking zone there. It's crazy.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, just in response to that, I think safety trumps that argument. So I'm gonna, with the approval of the seconder, I'm gonna remove the amendment and ask that it not be voted upon, and I'm gonna go with Councillor Hunter. I think maybe time we dealt with this. Safety is the issue, in my mind.
So do you want to change the recommendation? Do you want
No,
to defeat
one
it?
step at a time. Like, first of all, I gotta get the amendment withdrawn. That depends on the seconder.
I believe that I am the seconder.
I believe so.
I think the motion's on the floor, so you're looking to amend an amendment?
No, I'm looking to withdraw the amendment. Matter of fact, I think I can unilaterally remove my name as the mover. I think allowed to
And
do
so
that.
then I can remove mine as the second?
Sure.
I think, I think the chair's going to lean on staff here. Just for a moment, but I just want to say something. Is it gonna take a child running out from between two cars to get killed before we wake up? I'm sorry, I really had to say that.
And
So,
The amendment is withdrawn, Mr. Chair, your ruling.
I believe that, the seconder and the.
I've already made it clear that I would remove mine as well.
Okay, so the seconder's off the table.
So,
Now you're back to the main motion.
we're back to the main motion. Do we have, did we ever have a seconder for that one?
We did,
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
And did we have a mover?
We have a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Deschamps moved, Councilor Dobas seconded, that committee recommends the council continue the practice of temporarily creating a no parking zone on Earth.
Then I will call the question as the recommendation reads, right now, without any amendments. All in
Record.
favor?
Recorded.
Recorded vote. Mr. Packwood,
Hey,
Which was that?
nay?
hey.
Nay? Deputy Mayor?
Yay.
Mr. Mayor,
I'll vote against.
that's a nay.
Yep.
Councillor?
Yes.
And I will say nay.
I'm sorry?
Nay.
Okay, so the motion fails, Mr. Chair.
Motion fails.
So now we're back to dealing with parking on South Street and Irving Street.
Yes, we are.
May I suggest a motion with respect to alternative number 3, Mr. Chair?
I will move the,
Pass a bylaw to create and enforce permanent no parking zones on Irving and South Street.
so moved.
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Hunter. I'm going to call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Recorded on this then, again as well.
Mr. Packwood?
Yay.
Nay.
Nay? Mr. Mayor?
Yay.
Councillor Dillabaugh?
No.
And I will vote yay, it's carried.
What a,
Yeah, it was pretty.
that was a tough one.
Oh, yeah.
Gee, I'm
Good
glad-
job, Mr. Chairman.
I'm glad that's over. All right,
That's a tough one.
moving on to 7I, which is Public Works, and it's the Town Bridge Street Sign Replacement. And we do have a recommendation on this, and the recommendation reads, the committee recommend that council approve the replacement of the Cardinal Bridge street sign and cover the costs under the Township Community Improvement Project line of the 2019 budget. You have pictures as well as a briefing note. The new sign is on the back, and the old sign is on the page 3 of 4. We'll go with discussion first, if any. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, sure. First, I'd like to compliment the removal of the old signs that we inherited from the former Cardinal Business Association or whatever, the old rickety ones. I noticed that they've been
The ones that are falling down.
finally taken down and cleaned up. And I couldn't wait to get this through tonight to say that I look forward to seeing that area cleaned up. I think that I read in there that it'll be cleaned up as well as the new signage getting done. We're putting up new wayfinding signs, we're putting up new welcome to each village sign. We've done good signage on 401 and 416, and I think that this is a wonderful continuation of the branding exercise that was done in the past, and definitely getting it up to what our expectations of our residents are.
Any other discussion before I call the question, or before I call for a mover and a seconder, I should say? Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
Well, I missed the show. And I was gonna spend a lot of time discussing the wording, but I've lost, I'm tired. But I have one request. And that is, someplace in the briefing note, I think we've got a price to fabricate a new sign. And as I understand it, well, it says the sign will be the same size and constructed of aluminum composite sheets using sign enamel. But the drawing that I have on the back page, or at least on the front page, is the smaller sign. But that's one issue. The issue that I have is that I would ask respectfully that the old sign not be removed until the new sign is ready for installation, knowing that that postpones everything until 2024.
I would suggest that the committee needs to provide direction with that.
Well, in that case, Mr. Chairman, I'll look for an amendment again.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're gonna keep trying, aren't you? Counselor Dillabaugh,
No.
Deputy Mayor, you've already had your,
Yeah,
had your piece.
I'm still
Council-
lost in what the mayor said.
Yeah, Counselor Otter?
My concern was something like the mayor, when I looked at it there, I thought we were putting up a whole lot smaller sign, but a little back, and I see the measurements on here, and I see it's supposed to be the same, so.
Measurements are on the,
There was a thing in here about the difference in vinyl and metal, and I guess we're going with the metal. They're not just gonna fade instead of curl up and peel off like some of them do. Seen a few signs around the country that's doing that. So
and there is a
I'm
life
in
expectancy.
agreement with it. I just hope that if we're gonna, as Mayor said, if we're gonna take it down, I hope when it comes down, we have the new one ready to go right up in its place, so. And I know there's been trouble with signs sometimes, you get them from when they're supposed to be made, and when they're delivered and stuff, so.
Mr. Packard, was the intent to take the sign down immediately, or was the intent to actually wait until we had the sign made?
I defer to the Director of Operations. It will take some specialized equipment. I'm sort of thinking we're,
So through the chair, the plan was to have that sign removed within the next month and have the new sign installed as soon as it was ready. One of the reasons is as it continues to remain there, there's greater and greater chance that other portions of that sign will start to either fall in the river or fall over like a portion of that sign already has. So.
Mr. Chairman, my concern is we're gonna be heavily criticized if we take it down and we don't have a new one to go up immediately.
Oh, I know.
You know, whatever, they know what fair noise, now you just have to sign down.
There'd be 1,001 questions asked. What's it gonna look like?
Well, the recommendation doesn't address the removal, but.
Can we add it? And that the
do we
old
have-
sign
well, do
remain
we-
in place?
Well, do we have to add it? That's what I'm getting at. If we don't have to add it, and we've issued direction to staff not to take it down, then isn't that good enough?
Well, if we issue direction, I would be part of a consensus to issue that direction.
Okay, we've got the recommendation. I'm going to call for a mover for the recommendation.
We'll have further discussions now.
Well, if you want to have further discussion, well, let's do it right now.
Maybe I heard the director of operations incorrectly, but he's afraid of a safety concern with the possibility of some of that or more of that sign falling off like it already had.
What's fallen off?
Did I hear it? Well, I think that's what I had heard.
So, through the chair, if you look at the sign on the east, the top has already fallen off, and it's in our public works yard.
Are you talking about the top portion that we see on page 3?
That is correct.
That has fallen off?
That has been off for some time.
Okay, I can't recall seeing it. So has there been any inspection on the remaining portion of the sign that's there as to reinforce any idea that there may be a disaster, we'll say, with the sign?
Through the chair, there hasn't been a formal inspection done to test the durability of the remaining wood. However, we can certainly tell from the portion that has fallen off that the wood is rotten. So considering it was put up at the same time, I would have to assume that the remainder of it is not structurally sound.
So, I can't miss this opportunity, seeing safety was such a large discussion of our no parking discussion, and that we were making sure that everyone's safe. It would be beyond me to imagine that council could not follow the recommendation of our director of operations and take this down at risk of politically looking a little bit bad. I think we can promote the sign ourselves via our social media, and we can let our residents know that we have a plan. They've been asking for the sign to be replaced. We can make sure that it's clear to them that it's coming down for safety concerns, and we can push that new signage forward and let them know that it's getting done.
Counterpoint, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Counterpoint is it's in an isolated location, and if it does fall apart, I don't think anybody's gonna get hurt.
We're looking, if not too far down the future, it's going to be frozen and pretty much snow down there, and the fishermen just won't be there. Has there been any report back as to how long a new sign's going to take?
Go ahead, answer the question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, I believe, if I remember the email correctly, the sign can be fabricated fairly quickly. We were going to try to get McGregor Crane, who is in the area often for Ingredion, to remove and replace while they're in the area. I can't remember if Gordon Signs gave a firm commitment on how long it would take to manufacture the sign.
I believe if all supplies were received, it was about 2 to 3 weeks.
I'm sorry,
2 to 3 weeks.
2 to 3 weeks if all materials were received.
well, we have a bit of a conundrum here, safety over, Counselor?
Well, I don't have a problem taking it down if there's any chance of it falling over. I didn't realize that it was in quite that bad a shape, but I have to abide by our director of operations if he thinks that it might. And then we had such heavy windstorms lately that signs taken quite a beating, so the only question I have, I'd assume that the new one we're going up, it's probably gonna be on steel mounts, is it, instead of wood mounts that's going up on, or?
So through the chair, the plan would be to remove the 6x6 wooden posts that are there now and reinstall 6x6 posts as that main frame. And it would anchor to the existing steel structure.
So we'd go ahead and have if the whole sign comes down, in the meantime, we're waiting for the sign, we'd go ahead and get the framework in the ground to mount it on, so if ground freezes up or we get snow or something before the sign comes, we can mount it as soon as it comes.
No, it's sitting on a stone pedestal.
Yeah, so through the chair, it's on a stone pedestal with steel framework that the 6x6 posts sit in, and then the sign is mounted onto those 6x6 posts. So the plan would be the removal of the sign and the 6x6 posts, and then the new sign would be built sort of on the ground. The crane would raise it up and fit into to the existing steel framework.
What I'm getting at, if the sign's been there that long, is what it's sitting on and the anchors and stuff it's on, are they solid?
From all appearances, yes, that metal frame is in reasonable condition.
Mr. Packwood?
Just looking at the sign, the existing sign, it's pretty cruddy looking.
It is.
And it doesn't shine very well on Cardinal itself. And the other point, if McGregor Crane is in the area, that means we don't have to pay traveling charges for that thing. And I'm not quite sure what they are, but they're not cheap. And for me, get rid of it as soon as possible, get the site ready. Have a new start.
Okay, we've knocked this around. I've read the recommendation. We still don't have a mover or a seconder, so I'm going to call for a mover for the recommendation. Councillor Hunter, and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Deschamps. I'm going to call the question. All in favor?
I know what it would be.
Carried. Perhaps we can have a sign post haste.
Give us a lead time.
The operative word there was
Lead time.
okay, we're moving on, and it's another Public Works. This is 7J, Public Works, supply of sand for winter tender, and we do have a recommendation. Recommendation is that committee recommends that council award the supply of winter sand to G. Tackaberry and Sons Construction Company Limited at the unit price of $13.99 per metric ton to a maximum of $48,965, excluding non-rebatable GST. Do I have a mover? I have a mover with, and do I have a seconder? Mr. Packwood, thank you. Discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. I think that was the fastest one tonight. Okay, our next one is 7K, rezoning.
money to pay.
Can you direct somebody to wake Mr. Rainville up before we go?
He's alive. And moving. Thank you, Mr. Rainville, for your patience. We have a recommendation. The recommendation is that committee recommend to council that the township proceed with scheduling a public meeting date. This is for a public meeting date. You've had a chance to review the briefing notes. Any discussion before I get this mover?
Sure, I will.
Go ahead.
Mr. Rainville, on the record, I am excited to see what you do with your company. I'm excited that you chose Spencerville to relocate your company, and being a small business owner, watching other small business owners try to grow their business by any means that they can, looking to down the road for their expansion and their eventuality. I like the proposal that you brought forward. I think it's forward thinking, and and I can't wait to, get it over.
I appreciate it.
Any other comments, concerns, or questions?
Move the recommendation.
Hearing none, I have a mover with Mayor Sale to the recommendation, and Deputy Mayor second. Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Done. Carried.
If it was gonna be that easy, I would put that one first.
Hey, we didn't even ask for samples.
Oh, yeah,
Very
yeah.
special evening.
Just don't have any of your customers park on Irvin Street.
Oh,
Camera.
camera's going. Okay, we're moving on to item number 8 now, which is councilor inquiries and notice of motion. Do I hear any?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, I also have one.
At the Admin Finance Committee meeting, I put forward a little proposal as to one mechanism by which we might enter into an agreement with our neighbors to work together financing a third arena in the area should it come to pass. I didn't call for a committee recommendation on that motion at the time because I wanted to see, we had some folks in the audience that I thought might be interested in the proposal, and I wanted to see in the intervening period of time whether there was any take-up, sort of informal take-up on the concept. Now, during the intervening period of time between last week and now, I've had a discussion with one of the mayors, not with the other, and I'm serving notice as a motion, and I may change my mind between now and the council meeting, but that proposal may come back on the table and council can make a decision definitively one way or the other on the proposal as it was presented at the Admin Finance Committee meeting.
So it will be brought forward for council next week?
Well, I'm gonna leave I'm serving notice of motion, and that gives, and I reserve the right to change my mind.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Just an inquiry, if I may?
Go ahead.
The discussion for, just going back to the no parking on the very first discussion on 7A. There was, I think that was the no parking, wasn't it?
No.
The concern for the corner of Center and 44, correct? 6A, sorry. Is there any way, because I think there was a discussion of permanent no parking there as well, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, the direction was for staff to review the intersections and see what's appropriate as far as additional no parking areas.
Yeah. When that comes forward, just again with respect to places like Village Pantry, Little Sisters, Joe's Restaurant, possibly Mr. Greenville as well, will we be able to see a map with what the suggested distance back for stopping parking in those areas full-time would be?
Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? I have actually 2 items, but I'm just going to, this is an inquiry, and it's for the Director of Operations regarding Walker Street. Mr. Grant, have we had any more information, shall I say, with the between the contractor and ourselves regarding the weed issue on Walker Street?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The 30 and 60-day time limits with respect to acceptance have passed. We have not accepted it. The contract administrator has given notice to Cornwall Gravel that we are not accepting, and for them to develop a plan to remedy that. We have had a response back from Cornwall Gravel indicating that they will remedy it, and they are supposed to have a plan to us within the next few days with respect to time and what option they are proposing to bring it into an acceptable condition.
Okay, just one follow-up on that. I appreciate the the information, and I appreciate the concern and diligence you've done, but you will keep on top of that, I'm sure, and report back at your earliest convenience. Thank you.
Getting fitting.
I just want to make a quick notice and to inform council and staff that on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I attended the Ontario East Municipal Council conference in Cornwall. And it's an extremely good conference because it deals solely with Eastern Ontario and the tribulations and the workshops are geared for Eastern Ontario. I attended several of the concurrent sessions, such as Code of Conduct, such as Bill 68 information. Also managing municipal risk, I attended one of those. Also the cannabis situation, which is somewhat changing a little bit. I attended that session as well. And also with government and non-government partnerships, and that was put on by SNC, South Nation Conservation Area. And I did attend other sessions such as the plenary sessions and whatnot. And I will, as time on council goes on this year, I will be mentioning a little more about those conferences as needed. So that's the information that I'm just sharing with you. We move now to item 9 on the agenda, which is the mayor's report.
Well, just picking up on your comment about marijuana legislation, I see that the province has announced the results for the first 6 or 8 months or 9 months of operation. I guess it started in April. Only the province could lose $42 million on, what was it, $60 million of revenue? I don't know, but anyway, small point. And besides the point. So, I guess the main thing I wanted to mention, or the first thing I wanted to mention is council members are aware, I think, that Mr. Lee Whitley, the general manager of ingredient plant in Cardinal, has left the corporation after some 26 years. And I had a goodbye meeting with him to wish him well in his new position. And he wanted me to be sure to convey to council that he was very concerned about the fact that he was leaving at this time, which followed rather quickly after the resignation of the HR manager who went to take a job at Greenfield. And he said, I want you to convey to council that that was strictly coincidental. The plant is in great shape. Mr. Mark Harkus will be taking over as an acting manager for a short period of time. I think the new manager's name is going to be announced within the next 2 weeks. And the new manager is a very community-oriented person, as is Mr. Mark Harkus, who's still with the company at a much higher level, a VP level, but maintains an office at the Cardinal plant, but spends most of his time on the 5 or 6 other plants that he's responsible for. So I questioned him very carefully about the future of the plant, and he's very optimistic and should reassure everyone that there is no, as far as he can see into the future, the plant is very well set up to continue moving forward very productively and very profitably. Next issue. On September the 25th, I was approached by Clayton Jones of Cruise. He will have... Yeah, well, let me go back a step. I was approached by Clayton Jones of Cruise that the principles behind the Greenergy project, now that is the investors from the United Kingdom in London, those investors will be here on September the 25th. They've asked the mayor to attend a photo op at that time, just strictly for political reasons. I'm going to tell you that. And I asked if it would be possible or probable or permissible to have other council members invited to participate. And I was assured that any councillors wishing to participate would be most welcome and could give, as well as being part of the photo op, have an opportunity to meet the ultimate investors from the United Kingdom. And also he updated me that the project should be up and running by mid to late October. So if anybody is interested, I need to have some sort of an acknowledgement from you along about the end of this week, so that I can communicate that to Clayton for Wednesday morning, and the photo op will be at 9 a.m. at the Greenergy site in Johnstown. And now just a couple of other small things. There's a note here from the South Grenville Food Bank. It's addressed to the mayor, but I know other members of council are welcome and she'd like to have you. So the South Grenville Food Bank will be holding their spaghetti dinner at the Prescott Fire Hall on Henry Street on October the 9th from 5 to 7. If anybody would like to have the details, I can get Rebecca to circulate this letter. Now, something else that has come around to me, and I'm just going to mention it to you, if anybody would like to attend with me, it's important that I signal, but I've been invited as mayor, and I think the invitation to extend to members of council as well. It's called a Gathering of Gratitude. The Under One Roof campaign for the Brockville General Hospital is holding this Gathering of Gratitude on Friday, October the 8th from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Aquatarium in Brockville. If there's anybody who'd like to join me, I'd like to have your names and I'll pass them on to the organizers. And then the last thing to report on, of course, we're all part of the Spencerville Fair, and I'm not going to go into that, but on Friday, and I think you've all read about it either on my Facebook page or the emails I sent out, we finally got another meeting of the three mayors, Mayor Jones, the ex-warden, Mayor Todd from Prescott, and myself, with the Minister of Transportation concerning the Highway 401 Safety Task Force. And the minister has promised us that the task force will be called back together and that there will be additional meetings, and she will be looking for recommendations coming forward from the task force. And the good part about the meeting on Friday morning at 8:30 was that immediately following that meeting, the two ministers went to the westbound en route station at Mallorytown, and the minister announced that they would take, the government would take the first steps towards 6-laning the 401 in our area by conducting a needs assessment on all of the bridges in our area. Now, I assume that means from Kingston, although it was vague, from Kingston to the Cornwall or the Quebec border, how many of those bridges need to be wider or higher before a 6-lane project can be undertaken? So that was good news from the minister, and we take her at her word that that will happen in the near future. So that's my report, Mr. Chair.
Good, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, that brings us to item 10 on the agenda, which is question period. Anyone in the gallery?
I may just speak to the council with regards to Spencer Street and Center Street. There is a little bit of an issue with trucks turning, being a resident at that corner. There are several aggregate trucks and tankers that try to make it through that turn to the right to go towards the highway or towards Drummond's. And they struggle with that when there is traffic going westbound on that road or trying to make a left turn. I'm not suggesting that it become a no parking zone in front of our home at that address. However, it may be a consideration that is well worthy of council to look at.
Thank you, Mr. Renford, and I think with some of the discussions we've had around the table, we are aware of the situation at that corner. Thank you, thank you. Okay, with that, there's no other questions. We do have a closed session tonight, so we'll take a 5-minute recess, 5-minute break, and.
Need a motion, or a motion.
Oh, do we need a motion? Oh. A motion to, oh, we have to do that first?
Moved myself, second by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, the committee of the whole proceed into closed session at 9:10 PM in order to address a matter pertaining to litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administration tribunals affecting the municipality or local boards, specifically Spencer sewer lateral, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local boards, specifically minutes of closed session dated July 15, 2019.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Okay, 5-minute recess.
Moved myself, second by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, the closed meeting does now adjourn and the open meeting of committee of the whole does now resume at 9:47 PM. 13 minutes till shut down.
Thank you.
So we can get it done.
Okay, we're now in open session again. Now, we need to call. Oh, I'm getting late, boys. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Okay, now, we have to talk about the minutes. Who's got the motion for that?
For the minutes.
Okay,
So moved by myself and second by Mayor Pat Sayah that committee of the whole approves the minutes of closed session dated July 15, 2019.
thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And do we have an adjournment?
Moved by myself, second by Mayor Sayah.
Hold on.
Oh,
What should we report out?
Report out. The direction was given to the Ward 3 councillor to
Okay,
move forward and the item was deferred.
okay. Do we have a?
No.
Okay, as it stands now, we have voted on the minutes, and Councillor Hunter will speak with the owner of the property and get back to us. So this confidential piece of laterals is deferred. Now we can do the adjournment? Somebody got it?
I mean, adjourn.
Okay, we don't have a.
He's got.
I do.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Moved by
that's
myself,
fine.
second by Mayor Sayah, that the committee of the whole is now adjourned at 9:49.
I don't have minutes left.
Okay, we're adjourned.
I vote yes.
Vote,
Aye.
vote. Could you vote on it?
Yeah.
Just say.
All in favor?
All in favor.
Yeah.
We're adjourned.